I've been sitting in the reading room of the National Transportation Library for 3 hours. I've been going through corrosion reports, and I need to tell you what I found. What I found in a Federal Highway Administration engineering report from 2002 changes everything you think you know about rust. The number is $23.4 billion. Not total car spending, not insurance losses, just the annual corrosion hit to motor vehicles in the United States. Keep that number in your head. I kept turning pages. Same report, same dry language, same impossible number, $23.4 billion. Every year, most of it hidden in plain sight. Rockers, seams, brake lines, undersides, wheel arches, places nobody sees until the repair bill arrives. Then it got worse. The report did not describe some rare disaster. It described a routine failure. Moisture, oxygen, road salt, and unprotected iron meeting over time. That means the problem is ordinary, predictable, chemical, not magical, which means the answer is chemical too, and that is the part you were never taught. Not in shop class, not at the dealer, not at the parts counter. You were trained to think rust means replacement, welding, or body shop invoices with 4 digits on them. Keep that number in your head, $23.4 billion. Here's what the evidence shows, and here's why nobody was supposed to find it. A few dollars of the right liquid can stop surface rust by changing it at the molecular level. Do it before it blooms through paint and reaches the seam. A 16-ounce bottle can lock down 18 to 24 square feet of active rust when you use it correctly. And yes, this works even if you live in a city and you've never done this before. Stay with me. Because what I found in Holmes County and a 2002 federal report uses the same chemistry older metal cultures used against oxidation. The hidden trick is simple. You do not have to remove every atom of rust to stop the damage. You have to break the reaction path. When water forms a thin film across steel, oxygen and dissolved salts start moving charges across the surface. That is why the same car can look clean on top and rot from the inside out below the trim line. Rust is an electrical event wearing a dirty orange disguise. The old shops understood that. The quiet ones still do. Change the oxide, dry the surface, seal the metal. Do it before the sheet steel loses thickness, before the seam swells, and before the hole starts charging interest. Rust is not dirt, it is a reaction. Iron gives up electrons, oxygen takes them. Water speeds the handoff. Salt makes the pathway easier. Once that cycle starts, the orange layer swells, cracks, holds moisture, and feeds the next layer underneath. The National Park Service explains that rust converters react with iron oxide and turn that unstable surface into a more stable compound. Then you can paint it and keep it dry. In practical terms, that means the liquid does what sanding alone cannot do. Sanding removes flakes. It also opens fresh pores. A converter changes the chemistry on the surface itself. Think of it like a cast iron skillet. If the pan is dry and reactive, it flashes orange. If the surface is chemically stabilized and sealed, the oxygen loses its easy grip. Same metal, different surface state. The performance metric in this field is not horsepower. It is conversion efficiency and coverage. 1 unit of active converter can stabilize 18 to 24 square feet of light to moderate surface rust from a 16-ounce cycle. Dry abrasion gives you 0 chemical stabilization for the same square footage. 0. You removed material. You did not change the reaction. That gap becomes even larger when the treated steel is sealed within the same day. The U.S. Federal Highway Administration backed the larger economic point with brutal clarity. Direct corrosion costs across the United States were estimated at $276 billion per year, with $23.4 billion tied to motor vehicles alone. That gap represents a massive market in parts, shop labor, coatings, and repeat service every year. And that is why you have never heard of this. There is another part most people miss. Surface rust is not the same thing as structural failure. Industry makes money when you confuse those two stages. The first stage is chemistry. The second stage is fabrication. When you catch rust in the first stage, you are still fighting molecules. Miss that window, and you start paying for cutting discs, patch panels, paint hours, and labor rates. That is why timing matters more than strength. You do not win this by being tougher than steel. You win by acting before the next rain, before the next salt storm, and before the first blister under paint. That knowledge changes everything. I first saw the living version of this in Berlin, Ohio, just outside Mount Hope. The shop felt cool. 61 degrees, maybe 62. I heard harness leather creak and a hand file scrape, but no compressor ever kicked on. No impact gun, no spray booth, no rush. A man named Reuben ran his hand across a buggy step that had gone black where old rust used to bloom. He told me, plain and calm, that if you chase red rust dry, it comes back hungry. If you change it first, then seal it, the metal settles down. He said his family had done some version of that for 4 generations. The habit came with people who carried shop knowledge from Alsace and the Palatinate into Pennsylvania, then west into Ohio. That part matters. This was not internet folklore. It was inherited maintenance culture. Keep the metal dry, kill the active oxide, seal before due, the owner stays in control. A 1914 USDA Farmer's Bulletin on the care and repair of farm implements captured the same mentality. Preserve what you own early, or pay for it later. I noticed something else in that shop. Nobody treated corrosion like a crisis. They treated it like brushing mud off boots. Small habits, repeated on time, wipe the water line, catch the first orange dust, never leave bare steel overnight. That calm is hard to explain until you stand in a room where the problem has already been downgraded to routine. That is why these methods survive. They fit ordinary life. And they do not require a compressor, a booth, or a 4-day appointment. They require attention, the kind you still own. Go back farther and the pattern gets sharper. In Roman natural history, Pliny described protecting iron from rust with lead compounds, gypsum, and vegetable pitch. Different materials. Same principle. Change the reactive surface or block oxygen from reaching it. In the Leyden and Stockholm papyri from Roman Egypt, one recipe says to soak iron rust in vinegar for days. Acid first. Stabilize what remains. Different empires reached the same answer without meeting in a committee room. One leaned on acid, one leaned on barrier coating. Both understood that rust is not a curse. It is a process. Every civilization that mastered wet metal arrived at the same answer independently. The Amish never forgot. They carried it from Alsace and the Palatinate to Pennsylvania and Ohio more than 217 years ago. They kept building it because it worked. They never needed permission to do what made sense. Now for the part that should make you angry. In 1923, Alfred P. Sloan helped turn General Motors into a machine built on annual model changes, dealer dependence, and repeat turnover. The company was not protecting your old fender. It was protecting new car sales, parts sales, and a business racing toward billion-dollar annual revenue. A body that stayed alive too long threatened all of it. The mechanism was never dramatic. It was procedural. That is how profitable ideas disappear. Owner maintenance knowledge kept getting pushed out of the center. Dealer service, approved procedures, branded coatings, and replacement culture took its place. By 2014, the National Right to Repair memorandum that followed Massachusetts law still left telematics outside full owner control. Then Massachusetts voters tried to close that gap in 2020. What happened next was the modern version of the same instinct. The Alliance for Automotive Innovation sued to stop the law after Massachusetts voters approved it with 74.97% support. The opposition campaign behind the no vote raised $26.6 million, led by major automakers including General Motors, Toyota, Ford, Honda, and Nissan. Nobody told you, not your builder, not your contractor, not the man who sold you a rust package. Then came government cover. On June 13, 2023, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration told automakers to follow federal vehicle safety law, not the Massachusetts initiative. Enforcement stalled again. Only later did NHTSA reverse course and say the law could be implemented. Delay, confusion, cost. Same result. At the same time, the Federal Trade Commission said there was no empirical evidence behind the security claims used to limit repair. In December 2024, Senator Elizabeth Warren and other senators wrote that automakers opposed right to repair while profiting from data sharing. Not because it failed, because restriction protects profit. And the money trail is not hidden. Open Secrets shows the Alliance for Automotive Innovation spent $4,614,048 on federal lobbying in 2022, $5,500,316 in 2023, and $4,766,586 in 2024. The same trade group fought Massachusetts in court. Independent repair groups warned that data restrictions were costing shops $3.1 billion every year. That knowledge never disappeared. It was filed away. It was waiting. An entire field of owner repair knowledge disappeared from everyday car culture, dealership language, and practical education. Not because it failed, because it wasn't profitable. And look at how cleanly the story was sold. The owner became careless. The dealer became safe. The shop became official. The cheap fix became suspicious. The early fix became amateur. The late fix became professional, because by then it cost more. That inversion is the trick. Nobody told you the chemistry was simple. Nobody told you early action was cheaper because it kept you outside the most profitable part of the repair chain. Nobody told you, not your builder, not your contractor, not the man who sold you a rust package. The continuation is happening right now. Modern vehicles are data machines. The tighter repair data stays inside authorized channels, the more labor, parts, and subscriptions stay there too. The U.S. automotive repair and maintenance service market was valued at $183.4 billion in 2023. Every panel you save matters. Every seam you stabilize matters. Every early repair you do yourself is work that never gets billed. Now, if you already own a house and you're thinking this only applies to people starting fresh, stay with me, because this next part is specifically for you. You don't need to buy equipment. You need a bottle and a weekend. Start with honest rust, surface rust only. If the metal is swollen, cracked through, or soft under thumb pressure, chemistry is not your first move, structure is. But if the area is still solid, and the brown bloom is only on top, the cheap fix becomes the smart fix. Work on a cool panel, not a hot one. 58 to 82 degrees is the sweet range. Rinse off road salt first. Dry the area completely. Then feather the rust zone at least 2 inches beyond the visible orange edge using an 80 grit pad, followed by 180 grit paper. You are not grinding to shiny vanity. You are knocking off loose scale and opening the surface so the liquid can reach active oxide. For seams, get a nylon detail brush into gaps as small as 1/8 inch. For flat patches, a gray Scotch-Brite pad works better than a hard wheel because it stays controlled. If a blistered spot is wider than 14 inches, split the job into sections. If a pinhole is larger than 3/16 inch, stop and patch metal before you continue. Chemistry cannot hold air. The liquid itself needs phosphoric acid as the working backbone. Tannic acid helps convert what remains. Distilled water keeps mineral contamination down. A polypropylene spray bottle resists the mix better than cheap mystery plastic. Spray enough to wet the surface, not flood it. On light rust, a 16-ounce bottle usually covers 18 to 24 square feet. On rougher scale, expect 10 to 14. Let it sit 12 to 15 minutes. Keep it wet. Scrub lightly. Wipe off the orange residue. Then apply a second coat and let the surface turn dark gray or black. That color shift matters. It tells you the iron oxide has changed state. After it cures, seal it the same day with an epoxy primer. At minimum, use a zinc-rich direct-to-metal coating before moisture returns overnight. The sealing step is not optional. Leaving converted steel unsealed causes flash rust and throws away the whole advantage. Do not substitute white vinegar for the active conversion step. Vinegar removes rust, but it keeps working on bare steel and invites new corrosion if you do not neutralize and seal perfectly. Now slow down and finish the edges. Rust likes borders. It hides where paint thins, where spot welds overlap, and where your sanding hand gets lazy. Carry the primer 1 inch beyond the treated zone. On wheel arches, carry your top coat 2 more inches past that. On pinch welds, push a waxy sealant into every fold you can reach with a straw. Do not leave clean steel beside converted steel and call the job done. That edge is where the comeback starts. If the area lives under the car, rinse it again after the first week of driving. Then look for any tea-colored bleed at seams, bolt heads, and drain holes. If you see it, hit only that spot again. 40 minutes the first time. 10 minutes on a touch-up. That is how permanent repairs are really made. Not by one heroic day, by one honest day and one smart check. If you want extra insurance on the backside, use boiled linseed oil cut into a cavity wax. Or use a wax-based underbody treatment through any access hole larger than 3/8 inch. On a 95-degree day, a properly converted and sealed surface stays dark, dry, and paint-ready. It does not bleed orange back through the primer. Check it once a year, especially before winter. In salt states, inspect again after the last freeze. Your conventional body shop rust repair costs $1,240 to $3,860 to install. It costs $0 per month to run. It often lasts 3 to 7 winters before the seam blooms again. This costs $21 to $74 total for the chemistry, pads, and coating on a small repair. It lasts 8 to 12 years when the metal was still solid at the start. Your choice. Here is the part nobody explains. Rust loves trapped water, not open air alone. That means your first defense is drainage. Clear the bottom of the door. Clear the rocker drain. Clear the lip behind the wheel liner. If water sits, chemistry wins. If water leaves, time slows down. Wash salt off when the temperature climbs above freezing. Dry the seam before sunset. Repeat that rhythm for one winter, and the car starts aging on your terms again. Not because the metal changed, because you stopped feeding the reaction. Day after day through the worst months, everything I've covered across this channel, root cellar airflow, gravity-fed water, lime wash walls, I've put it all in one place, step by step, season by season, room by room, in the order families actually use it. Link is in the description. But stay here, because what Ruben showed me in that buggy shop is the part nobody is talking about yet. He was not obsessed with products. He was obsessed with timing. He told me rust is easiest to beat the day you first see color, not the year you first see holes. That is the hidden rule. Act when the problem is chemical, not structural. The difference between those two moments is the difference between a bottle and a body shop. And once you see that, you start seeing the same pattern everywhere. The cheapest fix gets mocked first, then ignored, then rediscovered 50 years later with better branding and a higher price. The Amish didn't read this in a textbook. They figured it out the way all real knowledge gets discovered, by paying attention to what the metal was already doing. That is why this matters beyond one rusty panel. It teaches you how systems train you to feel helpless before you need to. First, they rename simple maintenance as specialist work. Then they raise the price of delay. Then they sell confidence back to you at the counter. Once you see that mechanism, you stop buying the script. You start paying attention again. To dew lines, to drain holes, to the underside of doors, to the first orange shadow around a chip. Small signs. Small moves, big savings. That is how self-reliance comes back into a life. Quietly. If you're the kind of person who believes real knowledge was pushed aside to protect profit, you already know what to do. Hit subscribe. Not for me. For what comes next. Because this is not a channel. This is a quiet movement of people who have decided they're done being sold what they already own. I want to hear from you. Drop your state, the worst rust repair quote you have ever gotten, or the old trick your grandfather used in the comments. I read every single one, and your answers decide what we cover next. Next week, I'm going to show you what a 1946 Penn State document reveals about moisture control in outbuildings and small garages. The technique uses nothing but lime, airflow, and shade, and the paper trail proves modern builders knew the answer decades before selling you powered solutions. You're not going to want to miss that one.